Have you ever heard of the Franks? Before they became one of the most influential peoples of medieval Europe, they had a history full of migrations, battles, and alliances. In this video, we'll travel back in time and discover where the Franks came from, what lands they inhabited before arriving in Europe, and how they established their first great kingdom. Get ready for an epic journey through history. In the depths of ancient Europe, amidst vast forests and mighty rivers, a warrior people emerged who would change the course of history, the Franks. Their origins are shrouded in mystery, but some clues suggest that their roots go back to Pannonia, present-day Bulgaria, ancestral lands that were once home to wandering tribes in search of power and territory. Over the centuries, their destiny led them to the Rhineland in Belgium, where their identity began to take shape. But the Franks were not a single people. They were divided into fierce and fearless tribes. Among them, the Salians and the Ripuarians excelled in the art of war, earning respect and fear among their neighbors. The Romans tried to subdue them, but these warriors did not give in easily. Their knowledge of the territory and their ruthless tactics made them formidable adversaries, capable of changing the tides of battle. Before their great rise in Gaul, the Franks had traveled an uncertain path, defying enemies and forging strategic alliances. Their lands were contested, but their determination led them to establish themselves and prosper, paving the way for an era of conquest that would forever mark the history of Europe. In the turbulent 4th century AD, the Franks began to approach the Roman Empire, not as enemies but as strategic allies. The powerful Roman military machine, worn down by invasions and internal crises, saw these Germanic warriors as a valuable force to reinforce its legions. Thus, many Franks began to serve in the Roman army, learning its tactics, strengthening their presence within the empire, and little by little, becoming key players in the defense of the borders. But the true test of this alliance would come in 451 AD, when a terrifying enemy advanced on Gaul, Attila, king of the Huns. With his devastating army, he threatened to destroy everything in his path. Faced with this threat, the Franks joined forces with the Romans and other Germanic peoples to confront the Hun fury in the legendary Battle of the Carolingian Fields. Under the command of the Roman general Flavius Aetius, this coalition fought fiercely against Attila, managing to halt his march and force his withdrawal from Gaul. This battle was not just a military confrontation, but a milestone in European history. The Franks, who had previously been seen as barbarians, showed their worth and consolidated their position within the Roman world. This moment was crucial to their rise, paving the way for them to become the masters of Gaul decades later, under Clovis I, and found one of the most powerful kingdoms of the Middle Ages. In 481 AD, a young Frankish warrior ascended the throne and changed the destiny of his people forever. Clovis I, heir to the Merovingian dynasty, took command of the Salian Franks after the death of his father, Childeric Fern. At just 15 years old, he already demonstrated a fierce ambition and strategic vision that would lead him to conquer vast territories and unify the Frankish tribes under a single rule. In the 5th century AD, the Western world witnessed one of the most dramatic moments in history, the fall of the Western Roman Empire. With Rome weakened and its borders unprotected, Germanic peoples began to occupy territories previously dominated by the Romans. From the beginning of his reign, Clovis knew that military force was essential to consolidate his power. In 486 AD, he defeated Syagrius, the last Roman governor of Gaul, at the Battle of Soissons, paving the way for Frankish expansion. With each victory, his domain grew, and his influence spread throughout the region. But his greatest transformation would come in 496 AD, when he faced the Visigoths in a decisive battle. Before the confrontation, his wife Clotilde, a Christian princess from Burgundy, had already tried to convince him to abandon paganism and convert to Christianity. Clovis resisted, but in the heat of battle against the Alemanni, he made a promise. If he won, he would accept the Christian God. Victory came, and with it, his conversion. Guided by Bishop Saint Remigius, Clovis was baptized in Reims, becoming the first Christian Frankish king. More than 3,000 warriors in his army followed his example, cementing a powerful alliance with the church. This act was not only spiritual, but also political. By becoming a Christian, Clovis gained the support of the bishops and the Roman population of Gaul, strengthening his kingdom and ensuring his legitimacy as ruler. In 511 AD, the great king Clovis I met his final fate. After decades of battles, alliances, and conquests, he died in Paris, leaving behind a vast and powerful kingdom. The cause of his death is not entirely clear, but it is believed to have been due to natural causes. His legacy, however, was far from over. With his death, the Frankish kingdom was divided among his 4 sons, following the Germanic tradition of power sharing. This fragmentation led to internal conflicts, with disputes between Clovis's descendants and a succession of Merovingian kings who gradually lost power and influence. Meanwhile, the mayors of the palace, high-ranking officials of the kingdom, began to gain increasing power, paving the way for a new dynasty. It was into this scenario that Charles Martel emerged, a brilliant military leader who, although not a king, effectively ruled the Frankish kingdom. In 732 AD, he faced one of the greatest challenges in European history, the Muslim invasion. Islamic armies were advancing across Gaul, conquering cities and threatening to expand their rule into the heart of Europe. But Charles Martel, with his impeccable strategy, assembled a Frankish army and met the invaders at the Battle of Poitiers. The fighting was fierce. The Muslims, led by Abd al-Rahman, had a powerful cavalry force, but the Franks resisted with discipline and innovative tactics. After days of fighting, Charles Martel managed to halt the invasion, ensuring that Christian culture would remain dominant in Western Europe. His victory earned him the title Martel, meaning he who strikes like a hammer, a reference to the relentless force with which he crushed his enemies. This battle not only stopped Muslim expansion, but also consolidated the power of the Carolingians, paving the way for his grandson, Charlemagne, who would transform the Frankish kingdom into the greatest empire of the Middle Ages. In the late 8th century, an extraordinary leader emerged to transform Europe, Charlemagne, king of the Franks. The son of Pepin the Short, he assumed the throne in 768 AD, and his ambition soon led him to expand his rule, uniting vast regions under his rule. With strategic intelligence and military might, Charles conquered territories stretching from modern-day France to Germany and Italy, cementing an empire that would echo for centuries. But his rise was not just military. Charlemagne also became a defender of the church. In 800 AD, after restoring order to Rome and protecting Pope Leo III from political enemies, he was surprised during Christmas Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. Peter's Basilica, the Pope placed a crown on his head and proclaimed him Emperor of the Romans. This period marked the rebirth of the imperial ideal in the West, restoring the glory of the Roman Empire and cementing the alliance between church and state. During his reign, Charlemagne promoted administrative reforms, encouraged education, and promoted the Carolingian Renaissance, a period of great cultural and intellectual advancement. He built schools, standardized writing, and strengthened the economy, leaving a legacy that would shape medieval Europe. After decades of conquest and rule, Charlemagne died in 814 AD in his capital Aachen. His empire, though great, would face challenges after his death, but his influence would never fade. His name would become synonymous with power, leadership, and vision, and his coronation as Holy Roman Emperor would define the course of European history for centuries, leaving behind a vast and powerful empire. But his death brought with it an inevitable challenge: succession. His son, Louis the Pious, assumed the throne, but he soon struggled to maintain the unity of the Carolingian Empire. Ambitious nobles and internal strife began to erode the stability that Charlemagne had built. Over the years, Louis's authority was weakened by revolts and conflicts among his own sons, who wanted to divide the empire among themselves. In 840 AD, after Louis's death, his three sons, Louis II the German, and Charles the Bald, went to war for control of the territory. The empire, once a symbol of strength and unity, was plunged into a civil war that would last 3 years. The solution came in 843 AD with the Treaty of Verdun. This agreement divided the Carolingian Empire into 3 parts. Lothair I received Central Francia, including Italy and the region of Lotharingia. Louis II the German received East Francia, which would later become the Holy Roman Empire. Charles the Bald received West Francia, which would become the basis of the future Kingdom of France. This division marked the end of Carolingian unity and paved the way for the political fragmentation of Europe. In the years that followed, the territories were weakened by Viking invasions, feuds between nobles, and the increasing decentralization of power. The dream of a unified empire, like that of Charlemagne, would never be restored. The Treaty of Verdun not only redrawn the map of medieval Europe, but also laid the foundations for the formation of the future nations of France and Germany. It was the beginning of a new era, in which kings and feudal lords would vie for power and influence on an increasingly fragmented continent. And so we come to the end of this journey through the history of the Franks, a people who shaped the course of medieval Europe. From the rise of Clovis I to the expansion of Charlemagne and the fragmentation of the Carolingian Empire, we witnessed epic battles, strategic alliances, and transformations that echo to this day. If you enjoyed this trip through the past, don't forget to like and share this video with those who also love history. And of course, if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. There are a lot of incredible stories coming. See you in the next episode.